Tansei gamers, it's Todd Lyons here, and I just wanted to take a minute to talk about something that kind of bothers me, I guess, when I hear people talking about basic compared to, I guess, more modern incarnations of Dungeons and Dragons or retro clones, and that is the suggestion that it's great for children, it's a good learning tool, it's a stepping stone on your way from, I guess, knowing nothing about role playing to being able to play in the big leagues, to be an adult player or a more sophisticated player. And I'm not sure exactly where that thinking comes from. Maybe it's still leftover marketing from Gary Gygax back in the 70s when really just so that he could cut Dave Arneson out of royalties, he thought, well, I'm going to take this game that we developed together, I'm going to make the advanced Dungeons and Dragons game edition. Yeah, and yeah, I'll roll that out and convince everyone that the original is child's play, and this is the advanced thing that everyone should aspire to graduate up to. You know, in any case, maybe that's still stuck. Or maybe people think that because something is 300 pages or 250 pages or whatever, as opposed to 65 pages, it just must be much more sophisticated and complex. But just to try to make you make that decision for yourself, I thought we would look at a couple of examples of the same spell in two different games over two different periods. So on the left is from BX, the basic edition from 1981, and on the right is from 5e. And uncharacteristically for me on this channel, I'm going to just read each paragraph and then we'll talk about how they're different and how they're the same. So Charm Person has 120 range, duration, see below. See, that's already different. This spell can be used on any human or human-like creature, such as bugbears, gnolls, gnomes, goblins, hobgoblins, kobolds, lizardmen, ogres, pixies, or sprites. See? They spell it right out for you, which I do appreciate. It will not affect undead, nor creatures larger than an ogre, so there's a size specificity. If the victim fails to make a saving throw versus spells, the victim will believe that the spellcaster is its best friend. And will try to defend the caster against any threat, real or imagined. If the caster speaks a language that the charmed creature understands, commands may be given to the victim. Any commands given will usually be obeyed, except orders against its nature, alignment, and habits. So orders against its nature may be resisted, and an order to kill itself will be refused. Creatures with above average intelligence, that being a score of 13 to 18, may make a new saving throw each day. Creatures with average intelligence, that being a score of 9 to 12, which includes the monsters listed above, may again save once per week, and creatures with below average intelligence, which is a score of 3 to 8, may save once each month. And a charm may be removed by dispel magic spell. So that's a fairly fulsome and specific description of a spell for something that claims to be a basic game, or that in your mind may be a basic game. It certainly has a lot more specificity than, some retro clones of old school D&D, which aspire to give very minimalistic explanations. But in any case, let's look at the second spell here. So the 5e says, for Charm Person, it's a 30-foot range, not 120. Verbal and somatic components, I'm not sure if VSM is a thing that still gets asked about in any campaign, even with advanced D&D. The verbal somatic material VSM, I'm not sure that was ever enforced in any game that I've ever been a part of, 30 years ago and now. You attempt to charm a humanoid you can see within range. It must make a wisdom saving throw and does so with advantage. If you or your companions are fighting it, makes sense. If it fails the saving throw, it is charmed by you until the spell ends or until your companions do anything harmful to it. So the spell ends in an hour, I guess, if you don't do anything harmful to it. The charmed creature regards you as a friendly acquaintance. When the spell ends, the creature knows it was charmed by you. And for higher levels, you can target one additional creature for each slot level above first. The creatures must be within 30 feet of each other when you target them. So, yeah. Anyway, so the basic version of this spell is both is it less complicated? Is it less powerful? Well, let's look at the range. For one thing, it seems to have a greater range, unless feet or that. I know they've fiddled with ranges over the years, but that says 100. I read that as 120 feet. Whether that's correct or not, if I'm wrong, point it out in the comments. Whereas it's only a quarter of that in 5e. The duration is undefined. It's indeterminate. Whereas it's a flat 1 hour in 5e. And depending on the intelligence of the creature, it may be anywhere from a recheck per day to per week to per month. So you could charm a creature, and if it's not all that intelligent, it could be it could basically be your travel buddy for a nearly infinite period of time, assuming that it continues to roll kind of badly. Anyway. But as far as the limits on what you can ask of each creature, the 5e seems very particular on as long as you don't harm it, as long as you don't do anything harmful to it, which seems pretty wide open, but maybe not in a good way. That would suggest that as long as it's not being harmed by you, or you don't ask it to harm itself, presumably, although that is spelled out very specifically in the basic level spell, that the range of things that you could ask this thing to do are quite wide. And depending, I guess, on what your dungeon master thinks, yeah, that could be a very wide range of potential activities indeed. So with the basic spell, although it's an indeterminate amount of time, in some ways it actually puts more specific limitations on what you're allowed to ask this creature to do. And specifically, it's mention of orders against its nature, alignment, and habits may be resisted. And any commands given will usually be obeyed. So there's a lot more onus on the player to try to request reasonable things and realize, okay, if this creature is a vegetarian and I ask it to eat meat, it's going to not to do that because it's not part of its habits. Also, though, if it's an evil creature and I'm asking it to do something good, that goes against its alignment. So fascinating how different these two spells are. But I'm really hard-pressed to say that one is superior to the other, that one is better than the other. But one thing is for certain is that the basic version certainly is not less complex or inferior to what people use for the current spell now. So, anyway. This system was, I guess, marketed to be an onboarding, an introduction to the hobby for people, in hopes, I guess, that they would dump the old system that Dave Arneson was getting, he was receiving royalties for, and start paying Gary Gygax for his Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. In any case, that didn't hold up in court. But in the meantime, this onboarding thing that they created, this basic and expert from 1981, it ceased to be, well, I guess spiritually, it's more connected to original D&D than it is to the advanced game. But it really is its own thing. And it's not necessarily less complicated or more childish. The limits of this spell really throw that argument right out the window. It is a lot more simpler mechanically. It does not require you to have a 5-page character sheet like new games. And it does put a lot more emphasis on you defining your character through your choices, through your behaviors, through your personality, rather than you having to continually rely looking at your character sheet to tell you, oh, I have these skills and abilities and traits. And I guess I will take my cue from that as opposed to taking the cue from my own imagination. Anyway, I would be interested in your thoughts on this. So, leave a comment.